You said yes to plans 3 weeks in advance. You told your friends you'd love to come to the party. You even picked out what you were going to wear. But the night before, something changes. Your chest feels tight. Your mind starts listing reasons to cancel. And by the time your alarm goes off, you're already typing the excuse. Something came up. I'm not feeling well. Can we reschedule? None of it is really true. You're not sick. Nothing came up. You just woke up and felt like you couldn't do it. If this has ever happened to you, you've probably heard the word before. Someone called you an introvert, maybe a teacher, maybe a partner. Maybe you called yourself one, just to explain why you needed to disappear sometimes. But here's the strange part. You've met other introverts who are nothing like you. Some of them barely speak in groups, but come alive in a deep one-on-one conversation. Some of them love hosting small gatherings, as long as they can control the guest list. Some of them seem completely fine in public, right up until they get home and shut the door, and then something in them finally exhales. They all wear the same label, but they don't feel the same on the inside. That's because introversion isn't one thing. It's not a single switch that's either on or off. It's more like a fingerprint. The shape is different for almost everyone who has it. Psychologists who study personality have noticed this too. The simple idea of introvert versus extrovert doesn't capture what's actually happening underneath. Some people avoid people because socializing genuinely drains their energy. Some people avoid people because their mind is somewhere else entirely, lost in thought. Some people don't avoid people at all. They avoid exposure, the feeling of being watched or judged. And some people aren't avoiding anything. They're just more careful, more cautious. They think before they leap in every part of life. 4 different reasons, 4 different inner worlds, all labeled the same word. And this is where most people get it wrong about themselves. They assume introversion means shy. They assume it means antisocial. They assume it means something is a little bit broken, something that needs to be fixed so they can finally be normal in social situations.
But shyness is fear of judgment. Introversion is something else. It's about where your energy goes and where it comes from. A person can be confident, funny, even the center of the tension for an hour, and still be a deep introvert. Because the real question was never how you act around people. The real question is what happens to you after. Think about the last time you spent hours around other people, even people you love. What did your body feel like when you finally sat down alone? Did you feel lighter? Like something had been released? Or did you feel a quiet, specific kind of tired that sleep doesn't fully fix? That feeling is the clue. Not how many friends you have, not how loud you are in a room. That feeling, right after the noise stops, is where your type actually lives. There are 4 of them, and most people are a mix, but usually one shows up the loudest. The first one hides in plain sight, because from the outside, it can look exactly like extroversion. It shows up at the party. It shows up in group chats. It even shows up during a night out with friends, laughing, joking, seeming completely at ease. This is the social introvert. They don't fear people. They don't dread conversation. In small doses, with the right company, they genuinely enjoy it. But their social battery has a ceiling most people never see because they've gotten so good at masking the moment it runs out. Picture someone at a dinner with close friends. For the first hour, they're fully present, making jokes, asking questions, actually listening. Then something subtle shifts. Their responses get shorter. They start nodding instead of adding to the conversation. They check the time, not because they're bored, but because a countdown started somewhere inside them and they didn't choose when. Nobody else at the table notices. To everyone else, it still looks like a good night. The social introvert, though, is already doing math. How many more minutes until this is socially acceptable to leave? How to exit without seeming rude? How to explain tomorrow if anyone asks why they left a little early?
This is often misread as flakiness or moodiness, or worse, as not actually enjoying the people they were with. That's the misunderstanding. It was never about the people, it was about capacity. Even a great conversation with people they love costs energy. And once that cost is paid, no amount of enjoying the moment can stop the exhaustion from arriving. What looks like someone pulling away might actually be someone who gave everything they had, right up until they didn't have any left. Now think about the last time you left somewhere early, even though you were having a good time. Did anyone ask why? And did the real answer feel too complicated to say out loud? The second type is quieter and much easier to miss because it doesn't always show up around other people at all. This is the thinking introvert. They can sit in a crowded room and feel completely alone with their thoughts, not because they're avoiding anyone, but because their inner world is loud enough to compete with the outer one. Picture someone staring out a train window. Their eyes are open, their body is present, but they're replaying a conversation from 3 days ago, turning it over, examining a sentence someone said, wondering what it really meant. Or they're imagining a future that hasn't happened yet, building entire scenarios in their head with more detail than the moment they're actually sitting in. It isn't daydreaming for fun, it's how their mind naturally spends its time. People sometimes mistake this for distance. A friend might say, "You seemed somewhere else today," and mean it as a small observation. But for the thinking introvert, it can feel like being caught, like someone noticed the private room in their head that they didn't mean to leave the door open to. The hidden reason behind this constant inner narration is often a mind that processes the world by turning it into meaning. Where other people experience an event and move on, the thinking introvert experiences it and then quietly asks, "What did that mean? Why did it happen? What does it say about me?" On the surface, it can look like overthinking. Sometimes it is. But it can also be the same trait that makes them unusually good at understanding people, at writing, at noticing patterns others miss entirely. The same mind that keeps them up at night replaying a text message is often the mind that writes the most thoughtful reply the next morning.
Have you ever gone quiet in a conversation not because you had nothing to say, but because you were still finishing a thought from 10 minutes earlier? The third type is the one most people confuse with introversion itself, even though it's really something else wearing the same disguise. This is the anxious introvert, and the difference matters more than it seems. Picture someone about to walk into a room full of people they've never met. Their hands are a little cold. They rehearse an opening line in their head just in case. They scan the room before they even step inside, looking for a familiar face, a safe corner, an easy way out if things go wrong. Once they're in, they might do fine. They might even enjoy themselves. But getting there cost something. The anticipation was louder than the event itself. Introversion and social anxiety get tangled together here, and it's important to pull them apart gently. Introversion is about energy, where it comes from, where it goes. Anxiety is about fear, the fear of being judged, misunderstood, or caught doing something wrong in front of others. A person can be an introvert with zero social anxiety, and a person can be deeply extroverted, craving people and energy from every room they enter, while still carrying real anxiety about how they're being perceived. For the anxious introvert, both are happening at once. Solitude isn't only where they recharge, it's also where they feel safe. And that difference changes everything about how this type experiences the world. They might cancel plans not because they don't want to see someone, but because the version of the evening playing in their head, the awkward silence, the wrong thing said, the judgment they imagine on someone's face, feels more real than the actual people who are waiting for them. What looks like avoidance is often self-protection, not from people, from the imagined version of what people might think. And here's the layer underneath that. Many anxious introverts learned somewhere along the way that being noticed wasn't always safe. Maybe a mistake once got more attention than it deserved, and it never quite stopped mattering. Maybe they were the kid who got laughed at for saying the wrong thing, or corrected in front of others one too many times. So the mind adapted. It started treating attention itself as a small risk, something to monitor and manage rather than something to simply receive.
Have you ever rehearsed a text message 5 times before sending it? Not because the words were hard to find, but because you were trying to prevent a reaction that hadn't even happened yet. That instinct to prepare for judgment before it exists, that's not weakness. That's a mind trying to keep you safe using the only tools it has. The fourth type doesn't avoid people and doesn't fear them either. What they avoid is moving too fast. This is the restrained introvert, and they're often the hardest to recognize because from the outside, they can look completely comfortable in social situations. Picture someone in a meeting who has an idea forming in their head, a good one, but they wait.
They watch the conversation move around them, gathering information, letting other people speak first before they decide whether their thought is worth adding. By the time they do speak, it's usually precise, considered. Sometimes it lands so well that people wonder why they didn't say more sooner. This isn't hesitation from fear. It's a kind of built-in caution that shows up everywhere in their life, not just in conversation. They read reviews twice before buying something small. They wait a day before responding to an emotional message. They watch a new person for a while before deciding how much of themselves to share. The world often rewards speed. Quick answers, fast reactions, instant opinions, and the restrained introvert can start to feel like something is wrong with them for not keeping up, for needing that extra beat before they commit to anything. That pause, though, isn't slowness, it's depth. It's a mind that would rather be right or real than fast. 4 types, 4 different inner worlds wearing the same outer label. The social introvert, who gives fully then needs to disappear. The thinking introvert, who lives partly in a room no one else can see. The anxious introvert, who protects themselves from a judgment that hasn't happened yet.
The restrained introvert, who waits not because they're unsure, but because they respect the weight of what they're about to say. Most people are some blend of these, shifting depending on the day, the room, the person across from them. None of them are a flaw to fix. None of them mean you're missing something the loud, easy version of confidence has that you don't. Because here's what all 4 actually share underneath. Not fear of people, not dislike of the world, just a nervous system that processes life a little differently, one that needs quiet the way other people need noise, one that finds meaning in depth instead of volume. Maybe you came here to figure out which type you are, but maybe the real answer isn't the label at all. Maybe it's realizing that the parts of you that felt like too much, the need to leave early, the mind that won't stop turning things over, the caution before you speak, were never something broken. They were just never explained to you properly. If one of these 4 sounded like you, don't rush to decide it's the only one. Most of us carry pieces of more than one. Sit with it for a moment. Which one showed up the loudest while you were watching this? Tell me in the comments which type you recognized yourself in, and if you've ever been misunderstood because of it. And if this helped you understand yourself a little better, stay a while longer. There's more here worth discovering.